Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Gameplan. My name is Leo Howell. I am joined by Matt Harmon. And are you ready for Week 11 of the NFL season, Matt? Are you? Are you there?
I'm
And
here now. You were cutting out a little.
oh,
I hear
okay.
you.
Well, that's really good.
That's a nice start.
Yeah, off to a flying start. Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Gameplan podcast. My name is Leo Howell. I'm joined by Matt Harmon. Matt, are you ready for Week 11 of the NFL season?
Uh, sort of. I'm sort of ready. I have to admit, I said this earlier on Twitter. I'm pretty worn out. I love the regular season, and in a few months, in June, I'm going to be wishing that I could watch Browns Bengals on Thursday Night Football again. But I am pretty worn out. I'm tired. You know, but yeah, I'm here and I'm enjoying it. But yeah, I'm ready. I think I'm
Nobody
ready.
wants to hear you complain. We don't care.
I want to hear me complain, and
I'm sure you do. Well, you've got all the time in the world, but this one sacred hour of the week, the only thing you complain about is how bad our FanDuel lineup was last week.
well, I have to say, jumping on the show and talking to you right before we started recording, it was already jump started me. I already feel a lot more energized. So
That's very nice of you to say. Um, so before we preview Week 11, let's take a look back at Week 10 and our FanDuel lineup. We this is this is this is what people talk about when they're tilted and frustrated about fantasy football is what happened to us because we nailed like half of this lineup, and the other half was just so bad that it took us out of the cash uh, in this event because we went with uh, Justin Forsett, Jordy Nelson, Kelvin Benjamin, and Julio Jones, and like those are all good picks. Those are good plays. Those all panned out to where we wanted them to be. Basically, I mean, could have got a little more out of Julio, but not too much more. Um, but then we had Matt Ryan, LaShawn McCoy, Larry Donnell, and Robbie Gold, and those combined for about 25 points. And that's really what ultimately sunk us. And that's just one of those where you kind of gotta, just shrug it off and move on because the process was decent on all those. Like I guess technically Larry Donnell against the Seahawks was a little risky, but I mean, for the price, he was a pretty good option. But your thoughts on last week? Anything that stood out to you as something worth noting before we look ahead to next week? I think Matt's internet isn't quite doing its thing. Yep, and Matt's on. Okay. Well, with that in mind, until he returns, which he should shortly, um, I'm going to go ahead and point out some of the stuff that's been up on the site recently. I actually today posted an article that we're going to kind of discuss a little later in the show, um, taking a look at the role of statistics and strategies in football and in fantasy football. Basically, it was inspired by an article that I read that had to do with, hey, Matt's back. Okay, I don't have to fill for time anymore. Get better internet, Matt. I think he's still not really there.
oh, I don't
Yeah, you're kind of back. Let's.
here.
You're.
Leo, can you hear me?
I can in bits and pieces. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know what's going on with my stuff over here, but I think I'm here now.
You're kind of cutting in and out. I was trying to do the solo show there for a little bit, and
Oh, I've had to do that on our Sunday morning show sometimes. That's always fun.
yeah.
I'm sure.
So,
I'm sure you nailed it.
oh yeah, definitely. I was actually just introducing the article that I wrote that um, kind of feeds into our topic today. But I had actually asked you about anything from last week that stood out to you as being noteworthy before we move on to our topics for the day? So was there anything in particular last week that happened that you feel is worth talking about?
Um, well, I guess just I think we really have a good idea of just some of these teams that are really going in the tank, like Chicago and Carolina were two that really stuck out to me, and obviously those were two primetime games. The primetime games are really awful, by the way, and I know this is not like fantasy related, but sort of you can tie it back into it. I don't know if you can really say I want to target primetime games, but in these games where I think Chicago's going to get blown out, Carolina's going to get blown out. I think I'm going to maybe start trying to chase those a little harder. But they can be kind of hard to predict, so who knows? Um, those two things kind of stuck out to me.
For sure, yeah. Like I was saying, and I'm not sure how much you heard, and I'm not sure how much kind of came through because of the connection issues. But I think that really one of the things that's important after a week like this, when there were so many high-scoring games and so many blowouts, but so many like good players who didn't pan out like they should have, is that like you really have to trust that you made the right decision. If everything that you researched and everything that you did leading up to the game was sound, and then things didn't pan out exactly the way they should have on the field. And this is especially true when a team like scores defensive touchdowns and punt return touchdowns, like with the Eagles. If you started Mark Sanchez, like obviously you still kind of got some value out of that, but like if you started Jeremy Maclin, like those defensive touchdowns that went to Darren Sproles and to Bradley Fletcher, if those weren't touchdowns, those could have been Jeremy Maclin touchdowns, and then you would have got your points. So like don't think that you made a bad pick with Jeremy Maclin. Just trust that the process was right and the situation was right, and that you just didn't, um, get fortunate enough um, to actually have it manifest itself. Because ultimately, a football game is only 50 to 60 snaps for an offense. So sometimes guys just don't show up because there's a numbers game, and that game got out of hand quickly, and Macklin didn't really have much to do. So that's just my one thought. But on last week, go ahead.
Yeah, same token though, you can't also be afraid to kind of consider those ideas, and maybe that Sanchez values Matthews over Macklin, and maybe obviously it's not going to be that way. Yeah, I'm sure that you probably have more information on that than I do.
Well, no, it's not even information. It's just look at the targets. Like
Right.
it's nothing. It basically his points per target and his points per reception have gone up, but his overall volume in the offense has not. So that's the thing. Is like it's easy to think, oh, Sanchez prefers Matthews. There is maybe some justification to Sanchez is better when he throws to Matthews, sort of in a. I'm trying to think of another good example, but that maybe just their chemistry is better or whatever. But I don't think that that's something you can really rely on at this point, and especially not to like downgrade Macklin, maybe to
No,
upgrade.
yeah, exactly.
Matthews.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was trying to go with it, was that it doesn't say anything negative about Macklin. He's still going to get his. But I think it says something good for Matthews, in that, Sanchez, while he might not favor him more necessarily, he is more willing to, he probably trusts him, is more willing to give him high, high reward sort of targets than Foles maybe was. Who knows? Perhaps. We'll see.
Yeah, like I'm not. Well, let me pose this question to you. Somebody tweeted at me today, not for the show. They may not even watch, but if they do, cool. Here's your answer again from Matt and from me. He was asking if he should drop Terrence Williams for Jordan Matthews. Is that something you would do right now?
That's a tough one. That's
There's
genuinely.
a guy trending down versus a guy trending up, but like,
Right.
is that something you feel like is going to sustain for both of them?
I probably would. I always sort of believed that Terrence Williams was going to be inconsistent. I wrote about that at one point this year, that I just didn't trust what he was doing.
But like, who else is catching passes for them? Like Witten and Dez and DeMarco, but like, who else? Like
I think that's
going to.
but I think that's kind of the point, is that those guys are the ones catching passes, and it's usually just going to go that way. Whereas Williams is going to get sprinkled in here and there. I think Matthews has more of a chance to evolve into a mainstay of the offense than Williams does in his situation. But at the same time, Chip Kelly just pretty much said, like, hey, don't go extrapolating that for the rest of the year, because this was it might have just been a game plan thing, that we wanted to exploit Carolina in the slot, and we did.
Yeah, and that's definitely like Matthews is operating like 90% out of the slot. So if a team has a good slot corner, his matchup is not going to be as good as it is against a team that has a lesser slot corner. So that's something to watch for. And I know that Evan Silva's weekly matchups article at Roto World goes over that stuff in detail for every game. So if you don't have the patience or time or desire or motivation or means by which to go and research that sort of stuff, like that's out there. I know PFF Fantasy, Pat Thorman, I think, does some stuff like that for every week. But definitely Evan Silva's column is a must for that sort of stuff, because that stuff is important. Who's matching up against who in a wide receiver cornerback sense is very important for fantasy. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, but that was a legitimately good do I drop this person for Matthews sort of thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's the wheelhouse, is like the wide receiver 4 you barely use. Like
Right.
That's the kind of guy that you're dropping for Matthews right now.
Definitely. Also, Odell Beckham stood out. I think that was kind of his. I mean, I always knew he was good, but that was really I think that was really strong performance.
Can I make another bold take? I'm not going to put a bet on this one, but I'm going to make a bold take.
Sure,
I think
go
that
ahead.
Jarvis Landry is going to outscore Odell back to the season.
Well, thank you for putting that incorrect.
It's
Take
not
that.
seriously. Sean Green has scored as many touchdowns as Cordell Patterson, right? Like, I'm not crazy. Like,
I think you might be right about that, especially since you fumbled the one into the end zone this week. I think they might be tied. I know, doesn't Patterson have two? I mean, he has at least two receiving. I don't even know if that's right.
I'm checking right now.
But I'm talking about Landry over Beckham. That's incorrect.
No, I'm just saying that, like, you thinking that I think something is crazy does not mean that it's crazy. So,
No, you're right, but that one is just crazy.
like, my Doug Martin thing was wrong. Like, I'll admit that the Doug Martin thing was wrong. But
That was oh so long ago in our history together. That was far before we ever looked upon each other's faces on this hangout.
that's true. That's very true. Let's get a question in real quick here, because I think this is a good one, because we were just talking about the Eagles and Mark Sanchez. And this is a little bit of a Week 11 preview, and we won't talk about the rest of Week 11 until a little later in the show. But Brady or Sanchez, Week 11, is the question. And just for those of you who maybe haven't looked yet, or who are too lazy to look, Brady and the Patriots are taking on the Colts on Sunday Night Football, whereas Sanchez and the Eagles are taking on the Packers in a 4 o'clock game on Sunday, I think. So where are you leaning on that one, Brady or Sanchez?
I think I would still go Brady.
I would absolutely go Brady.
I think just because, and I mean, I'm as guilty as anybody as getting caught up in really exciting things, and I think this whole Mark Sanchez thing is exciting just for the sake of, like, I can't believe this is actually, he's playing well and people are actually saying nice things about him. So I'm as guilty as anyone getting caught up in that. But I really think that this is going to be another good Brady week, especially Brady to Gronk week. I butchered that, but yeah, I think it's going to be a big week for those two.
Yeah, Colts give up 10 points per game to opposing tight ends, and they haven't faced Gronk yet, so he's going to bring that average up.
Yeah.
They are 21st in quarterback points per game, 21st if you're ranking from good to bad, so they're on the higher end of that. That's similar to the Packers. The Packers are a little better in terms of quarterback points against, and so then since I feel like both matchups are kind of equal, and both totals in these games are super high.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go with the guy who's better, and that's Tom Brady. I mean, Mark Sanchez played well, but he's not Tom Brady. And um, like you said, you've got a guy like Gronk who is just such a touchdown specialist and just such a red zone dominator that, when they get in opportunities to score, I feel more confident that the Patriots are going to score than the Eagles, even after last night or after the other night. So I think that's definitely Brady. But this is one case where it sounds like it's a 10-team league, and he's picked up Sanchez because he was available and to fill in for bye weeks and stuff, and that's totally cool. Like I'm cool with that, especially this time of the season when most bye weeks are over. Like you can carry that second guy, but at this point, like I'd start looking to, drop Sanchez the next time you need to maybe pick up another position player, unless he's on the waivers and you were just asking speculatively, in which case I don't think there's any need to pick him up.
Yeah, probably not.
So yeah, let's go into our little rant section of the show.
Let's do it.
Basically, lately there's been a lot of discussion about the different strategies in fantasy football. We're sitting about 10 weeks into the season, and so people are looking back at their teams and how they came out, and not everyone's happy with how their team came out, or some people are very happy with how their team came out, and they believe that it is because of their strategy and their approach to the draft, or that maybe other people's failures are because of their strategies or approaches to their drafts, or they're just generally talking about the strategies and approaches to their drafts because that's what we do when there's not actually a game going on and we write about fantasy football, is that we just like to pontificate about that sort of stuff, and it gets into lots of conversations. Similarly, and this is what I was referring to while you had disconnected, was I was reading an article about numbers in football and pro football focused numbers and metrics and things like that, and how a certain writer thought that they were meaningless and that they were useless. And that all kind of brings me to a discussion that I wanted to have kind of from a psychological standpoint, from a kind of transparency about kind of how we approach things standpoint, is about numbers in sports and about strategies in fantasy football and all these things that seem to be kind of polarizing topic. Kind of, it's either you're over here or you're over here, and there's nothing in the middle. And I think that this is especially true in fantasy football when it comes to strategies and theories. Like we talked a lot about late round quarterback. We actually had back when this was a podcast, I had the podcast with JJ, and we talked about the late round quarterback theory. We talked about tight ends early. You and I did. We went back and forth on that. We've talked about a lot of these different strategies and approaches and things like that. But I think it's important to note, and I think you're going to agree here, is that it's not you can, with the right players, you can make any strategy work. And you can find anecdotal examples of literally any viable draft approach working. Like, even if it's just I followed the ESPN general rankings to pick between positions. Like, if you just pick the right guys in those spots, like you turned out with a good team, anecdotally you can find something wrong with every team. So I feel like that one of the things that's important, and I think that this is something that JJ tells me all the time when we're just discussing different ideas, is that statistics and, like, from a real football perspective, and then like strategies and theories in fantasy football are designed to help. They're not designed to be the ideal way to play or the ideal way to analyze or the ideal way to approach things. They're just designed to help and to limit risk and to increase the odds of success. And that's kind of what any of these different approaches are. Like, even like value-based drafting, even zero running back theory, even late round quarterback. They're all just designed to increase your chance of success and limit your chances of failure. They're not some end-all be-all approach that is the best way to do things. And there are people who think that their strategy is the best among the strategies. It does not mean that they are a foolproof way to always win at fantasy football. There's no such thing as that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun because everyone would just do that.
Yeah, and I mean, you made a great point in that you can use any anecdotal, piece of evidence to support anything. I mean, I zero RB'd a lot this offseason, and I could pull you up some of my teams that look really good. I'm 7-2 or whatever, and say, hey, this worked because look at this lineup, look at this team, look at how well I've done. But then you could go in and see some of my other teams that are complete garbage. So, and that's why I think it's important to always consider when you're talking about strategy is that it doesn't just end on draft day. I think we've totally become enthralled with fantasy drafting. I mean, there are some leagues where all we do is draft now, MFL 10s and stuff like that. So, but that's kind of a different subject. Yeah, I mean, and as far as numbers in football go, I think the people that are, how to say this the right way, like people that are totally like, no, it's not about numbers, it's all about the film or whatever. I mean, I think that's really an antiquated way of looking at it, because a lot of these numbers come from, there's some places come from, actually watching the games or whatever. That they come from real life examples. At least, that's what I think. They represent a concrete, not infallible, but a concrete representation of something that is, so hard to represent. And so I think that there's totally a role for numbers in sports and it's in football in general, even though it's hard because there are so many moving parts.
Yeah, like that's the thing, and I wrote this in my article, and you could go to our website, fantasygameplan.sportsblog.com, and you can check out that article. But basically, like I talked about baseball, and baseball is where I fell in love with statistics, and it's where everyone who is into sports falls in love with statistics. Is that in a baseball game, there are over 200 interactions between a pitcher and a batter every game, and those are always the same rules. The pitcher's always standing in the same spot, the batter's always standing in the same spot, and they just do the same thing over and over and over, and it gives us so many different repeated steps of what is essentially the scientific method. That is the experiment. The pitcher to catcher interaction with the batter there is an experiment that happens over and over and is repeatable. And when you're dealing with stats, when you're dealing with science, when you're dealing with things like that, you have to be able to repeat things and continue to draw conclusions from the data that you get from that. And since there are so many controls, there are so many things that are the same on every pitch in baseball, you can begin to get real information from that. And we do. There are so many statistics in baseball that go like 3 or 4 levels deep into the statistics that are just fantastic, and I wish football had them, but they don't, because from just a raw data perspective, there are things that happen on a football field that you cannot quantify. There are multiple positions on the field that you cannot quantify what they do, and then even still, there are too many points of action. There are too many variables. Like, not every play is run from the same formation. Not every play has the same personnel. Not every play has the same defensive personnel. Not every play is handled the same way depending on where it is on the field. Not every play has the same amount of distance from one sideline to the other. Like, there's so many things that change, like just from a physical perspective, and then you add in the play calling, the schemes, the situational changes in how teams play, the weather, the location of the game. There's so many different things that can impact football that it is impossible to, like, there's no war for football, and for good reason. There's no cross-player way to say, here's how good this player is, and this player is better than this player because his war is higher. Like, there's no way to do that in football, and that's okay with me. And I'm not, as someone who likes statistics, I'm not going to complain about it. But like you said, every statistic that we have in football comes from something that actually happened on the field. And so with proper context, it's all useful and it's all viable because it's taking something that actually happened and using it as either a foundation or as a checks and balances for something that we've seen. Like, if you watch a game and you think, oh, X quarterback looked pretty efficient today, and then you look at his statistics and it turns out that he was, had an adjusted net yards per attempt of 10, like, okay, yeah, he was really efficient that day. If you look at the adjusted net yards per attempt and it was 5, like, maybe you need to go back and look again and see what he was doing wrong, because an adjusted net yards per attempt takes into consideration sacks and touchdowns and interceptions and stuff like that, and it builds it all in. It's a great statistic. It's a Pro Football Reference. But like you said, I think that it's antiquated to say that film is the only way to approach it, because there is no one who is infallible when it comes to watching film, and one of the complaints that people who stick to just film say about people who use stats is that they don't have context. Three of the most important pieces of context for any football play is what was the play call, what were those players' specific instructions either before the game or during the game, and what was going on in that player's mind when he made the decisions that he made. Those are the three most important pieces of context because it's not like baseball where you just run from home to first, first to second, second to third. Like you move anywhere in this 360-degree sphere on the field, and like those decisions, like if Deshaun Goldson jumps a crossing route and lets Julio Jones get behind him for a touchdown, there's no way to quantify that because you don't know if that's what he was told to do when the corner was supposed to carry the receiver behind him and the corner didn't do its job. Like there's no, even as a film watcher, like you can see that and think that it was Deshaun Goldson, but there are three key elements that you will never know, and that is like what was Goldson told to do, what was the actual play call, and what was Goldson thinking he was supposed to do. You'll never ever know those, and we won't know those. So the point of statistics is that you see those happen over time through charting and through things like that, and you notice trends, and you say, hey, Deshaun Goldson does this a lot. Maybe this is a guy you can target in fantasy football. Maybe he's not that good. But it's not a situation where people are just using stats on their own. Pretty much everyone who uses stats also watches the game, and if they don't, like that's a flawed process too. But just using film is ignoring the context of the stats and the trends that we can get from them, and it's also kind of assuming you know a lot more than you do about what's actually going on the football field. And that's not an insult to anyone's intelligence. There are some really smart, like Matt Bowen. Matt Bowen used to play in the NFL, and even still, like he doesn't know what's going on in every play. Like he can diagnose a play really well, like from tape, maybe as well as anybody I've seen, but he still doesn't know what that player was specifically told to do in practice and what they were thinking on that play because they could, again, the player could have had good process and it just didn't turn out well. Like he could have gone to the sideline and explained to his coach what happened, and his coach pat him on the butt and said that was a good job, even though he got burned. Like you never know.
That's a fantastic point by you, and just sort of a real life example. I write film recaps or film not recap, but like film based articles for Black and Blue Review, and when I approached Bill about writing for the site, Bill Voth, who runs Black and Blue and everything like that. So when I approached him, he said he's like, I'm really hesitant about having film on here because people want to assume things, and that was something we went back and forth on for a while. Was you never know what I mean. You could be like you said, you could be watching film your entire life, but on each specific play, you're not there. You're not there in the team meetings. And that's what I don't like about. I guess I don't know if like you held a gun to my head and said like, oh, what do you prefer? Are you a film guy or a stats guy? Like everybody wants to put everyone in a box. I guess I would probably say I would lean more towards being a film guy or whatever. But so many of the other film guys drive me nuts. Like not everybody, but there are some people out there that because they make these grand assumptions off things that they don't really, you don't really know. And I guess that's another thing too, is when you're approaching film, like you have to kind of say, okay, what do I know? What can I not assume, but what can I, literally understand by just the information I have here and anything else I can bring from an outside source. And that's tough. That's like you're right. It lacks just as much context as running through a stat sheet or running through a metrics sheet. I do like the stuff I do for reception and perception. All of that stuff requires a ton of context, and some of the context doesn't exist yet because I'm one man doing it on my own here, and it's a slow process. So, like when I look at something, you can't just look at one piece of like one number I give. You got to look at it a lot of different points.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's important here is that, particularly with Pro Football Focus, who's always seemingly the center of these discussions, is that
right.
There are two clear, distinct aspects of Pro Football Focus. There is, we charted stuff and made raw statistics out of it, and we watched the game and graded it subjectively. There are two different aspects, and they're both, all under the same umbrella of their premium statistics, and I think they're all great. But obviously they need context because everything does. There is no single way to describe football without context except for just playing a video of football. That's the only way to like Like if I asked like how good is, you know, Jeremy Maclin, the only way to accurately describe that is to play you a video of Jeremy Maclin playing football, and that's not
Even
analysis. That's just you know
and
reading.
even that is not a sure thing because you and I might value two completely different things in a player. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely, because he's too
yeah,
short to score touchdowns.
exactly. I mean, you would like if we watched a video of an old and slow player, you would be in love, and I would not like it. I mean,
Yeah,
that.
like basically you could um, put us in one of those like blind taste test situations where like you take the jersey numbers off of the players and you make them all look
Yeah.
the same, and then you just play a clip and it's Fred Jackson getting 4 yards on first down, and I'll love it, and Matt will say it's boring, and then you'll show one of Cordell Patterson. Knowing that he's not designed to get the ball on a play and like walking 3 steps and stopping and throwing his hands in the air, and Matt will
Okay.
be like, "That's the guy I like right there."
Okay. Okay.
I watched Kelvin do that so much the other night. Kelvin did that all the time. That
You don't have to tell me twice
that when the
about the
play was
Kelvin
not
things.
going to Kelvin Benjamin does not do anything. Um, but hey, I mean, they learned from the best. These kids grew up watching T.O. So
Seriously, that is so true. I think it's Ethan Hammerman who has been saying that Kelvin Benjamin is T.O. and like from that standpoint, it's totally true.
well, and the makes the ridiculous catch, drops the easy
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Like that is
Yeah,
so
that's all
T.O.
part. That's all part of the Kelvin coaster.
Yeah,
That's all part of the ride we're on. But no, yeah, I mean, it's just everything. When you're evaluating talent, when you're evaluating players, everything is 99% of things are subjective. It's not a concrete business, and I think that's the problem. Is that it's a lot of it's probably just the world we live in and what the audience who cares about the things that we say. What a lot of people demands is a real hard concrete take, but so much of it is gray area, and it's what's your taste, what's your flavor in a player. So I mean, obviously, like Peyton Manning is good. Like everybody's going to agree on that. But you can even pick little holes in this and that because it's all subjective. And I guess
I
that's
mean, I wrote what amounted to an anti-Peyton Manning article before the season. So yes, like you can pick a hole in anything.
exactly.
So
You can use any piece of film. You can use any numbers to
well,
write yourself a story.
Mike Glennon is the perfect example of this because there are opinions from all sides of this angle of just a guy who is just kind of a average football player, but just people watch him and get such radically different opinions of what he is and what he's capable of. So, like, I've never really thought he was all that good, but there are people like I think that in the BR 1000 he was like the 18th quarterback or something crazy like that. Like he was ahead of Carson Palmer or something. I think I don't know, but um, yeah, like there are so many different ways to watch a football game that you can't. It's almost like you can't say that film alone is good enough to justify or to explain football because there's no consensus on what watching film means because it means something
Right.
different to everybody.
Exactly. I remember over the summer, like reading. I remember when Sam Munson dropped the, Brady's not elite, and how that, set the internet aflames for a while. And then, like, a couple of days later, Chris Wessling said on the Around the NFL podcast, I watched every snap of Tom Brady, and there's no way you can tell me that he's dropped off last year. It's like, okay, so what the hell does that mean? There's two guys, two smart guys, whose opinions I trust, that say two completely different things. And it's like they've each come from their different methods and both from watching the games. So they both watched the same things and saw two different things. It's just like, with art or film, like movies, film, listening to music, you
Well,
see
I
something.
mean, we can all objectively agree on from a music perspective that 2 Chainz is the greatest musician to ever live. But apart from that, yeah, I mean,
Well, yeah, naturally. I mean, come on.
but let's
So
let's
yeah,
let's move on. I think we've ranted enough. Definitely hit us up on Twitter though if you want to talk about this stuff because it lives on Twitter. This discussion lives and thrives on Twitter. Um,
which is a terrible place for it to live
it
and
really
thrive.
is. 40 characters is not enough to like. I went on like a 7 minute rant there. Like that's not that doesn't fit on Twitter. But one
That
thing
how
that's
many
very
how many
important. What?
I said, like, how many characters is that?
Yeah, like that's a million characters. Like that doesn't even fit on Tumblr. Um,
Right. And I already feel like I've tweeted too much if I tweet 5 things back to back about the same subject. I'm like, I need to shut the hell
one
up for an hour.
one thing that's very important to know though about this whole conversation is that anytime a short wide receiver scores a touchdown, you need to tweet at Davis Maddock and just like basically just like put the wide receiver's name and like you suck or something. Like just do that every time because it's great. Like he loves it. Like that's his favorite thing on
Right.
Twitter is when people do that. So
Well,
um,
Davis doesn't follow me. We have no relationship, whatever. But I can't. I think I said at one point I was like, come on. I don't. I mean, be original. Like it was cute the first time. It's not funny anymore. Yeah.
well, it's all I don't know.
I love original. Well, it depends on why you do it. I mean, but like some people really think like, haha, you're wrong. It's
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, it's totally justifiable to dig at Davis because he kind of wants it, like he kind of
right,
likes it. But
no
at the
doubt.
same time, like yes, like okay, yeah, Antonio Brown and Randall Cobb caught touchdowns. Like I don't think you could objectively ask, Davis if he thought they were bad football players. It's just that the way he evaluates football players that is not, you know.
Yeah.
I'll give him the speech to the two people who watch this instead of like his millions of Twitter followers. But basically, like he thinks scoring touchdowns are important, and tall people score touchdowns more often than short people in the red zone. So that's why he prefers tall receivers. Like it's not a short wide receiver suck. It's what he prioritizes, which goes back to what we were talking about this whole time. Is that it's really about what matters to you.
Out,
Honestly,
outliers don't make the model,
yes.
or they
Well,
don't. Outliers don't break the model.
yeah, and from an objective standpoint, like I love Davis, and some of the stuff Davis produces is just fantastic. Like he's won me a bunch of money in college football this year on DFS. But if Davis Maddock built a football team from the ground up, like if he did like a Madden fantasy draft in real life and like, took over a team, I don't think that team could move between the 20s. But once it got into the red zone, it would score every touchdown every time. But like he would just have big, slow receivers or big, fast receivers who aren't necessarily technically sound, and they just wouldn't ever get into the red zone. But then when they did, they would score a bunch of touchdowns. Like I feel like that's his dream team is to have like Mike Evans and Kelvin Benjamin and guys like that all at wide receiver with like Cam Newton at quarterback.
Yeah.
So like there's going to be no consistency on the offense at all, but when it hits big. So
Right.
and that's a preference thing. There are some people who prefer Mike Lennon with Fred Jackson and James Jones and all
Ew.
these boring other players. Like there are people who like that, I guess. So
Who?
Mike Lennon and James Jones just kind of ruined my day. Let's talk about Week 11. um, let's do this along with setting the lineup. Let's do it all together, and let's just go position by position, and instead of going back and forth, and we'll kind of like agree on every spot. We're gonna do a DraftKings lineup this time. Um, we did FanDuel last week, and it didn't pan out well. But let me find $2 play action, so we could win as much as 10 grand with our excellent fantasy football picks here.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, get my matchup sheet ready, and let's discuss the quarterback position real quick. Taking a quick look here, uh, the Broncos obviously have a great quarterback matchup this week against the Rams. But whatever. You were going to start Peyton Manning anyway if you have him in a season long. The Eagles-Packers game and the Colts-Patriots game, you want all of those quarterbacks. They all have a good situation. But a couple guys under the radar that maybe you weren't considering or weren't thinking about. Teddy Bridgewater has a fantastic matchup against the Bears this week. If you're in need of picking up a quarterback for 1 week, I think Teddy's a good option. He's still waiting to kind of have that breakout game as a thrower, but I think that could come this week. His volume, like I think he's thrown 42 passes the last 2 weeks, like 84 combined. So the volume's there. So against a bad passing defense, that could turn into some serious points. Dome against the Saints, like I think that's maybe a good spot for him to bounce back and score a couple touchdowns. He's always been really streaky. He's had a long week to kind of recover and prepare. He's going to be playing in a very offense-friendly location, so I'm cool with if somebody drops Andy Dalton and you don't have a quarterback that you can trust. Like I'm totally cool with Andy Dalton this week.
That's gross.
Like he's not a bad football player. Do you think Andy Dalton is a bad football player?
Uh, it, he would be a really nice backup quarterback to have.
I know.
Like a backup NFL quarterback to have. But
There are too many quarterbacks that are currently starting who are worse than Andy Dalton for me.
I'm saying like in an ideal world.
Well, yes, in an ideal world, if in an ideal world I'm starting Aaron Rodgers and I have Peyton Manning as my backup and offensive coordinator, so
Okay, well that's not. But I mean, but like.
it's not realistic to have Andy Dalton as a backup. But I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
I'm saying, but what the
He's on the
caliber
upper level of the tier that includes guys like Mike Glennon and Ryan Fitzpatrick and all that. Like I totally get what you're trying to say.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But if we go down the Dalton wormhole, we'll be here till 11.
Yeah.
So
it's a bad idea.
No, not a good idea. Yeah, but those are some good picks by you. Robert Griffin. I don't know if you mentioned him, but that's,
I didn't. No, actually both sides of that matchup.
Yeah.
Josh McCown and Robert Griffin.
Yeah, both of those are good matchups. Yeah, no, those ones really stand out. And I mean, I don't think I'm probably not gonna go back to the well with the Matt Ryan thing this week.
Not in DFS, you mean?
No, yeah, not in DFS. In season longs, yeah.
His offensive line is too bad, and that offense is just so backwards that I can't trust it.
Yeah, even against Carolina, but they are
like on 3rd and 5, they're throwing wheel routes to Devin Hester, who's already dropped a pass in the game. You know, instead of like getting two of the best receivers in recent history involved in the offense. So it's just like it's one step ahead of the Panthers offense, which is to say like way at the bottom of the like innovation list in the NFL. So
the worst things in the world.
Mike Shula makes me sick. He sets football back by like 10 years every time he calls a play.
It's awful. I really can't talk about it. It's
another one. San Diego, Phillip Rivers. Kind of been quiet because there was a bye week in there, and there was a really bad game against Miami in there. But home against Oakland, great spot for Phillip Rivers to kind of bounce back. And that's another guy that maybe he's been dropped in your league because he's been quiet for so long. That would be a guy I would scoop up if I had the chance.
Yeah, definitely.
And Keenan Allen as well. I mean, we're going to talk about wide receivers, but in case I don't forget, or in case I do forget, like that's a guy I like this week as well. Even though Kelvin Hayden's apparently been looking all right, but DJ Hayden, not Kelvin Hayden. Kelvin Hayden's
Yeah, but DJ Hayden also gets hurt every 5 seconds too.
Yeah, well that's true.
Like every time I've never watched a full-on Raiders game, but just when they pop up on the red zone, I swear to God, every time DJ Hayden's.
Well, I mean, that's always kind of been his thing, his injuries. Like he had that freak chest injury and
where he like almost died. Yeah,
all that crazy stuff. So let's pick our quarterback, and there's kind of two options. Like there are always two options, but this week it's so stark the difference between paying up for quarterback and not paying up for quarterback. There are 4 quarterbacks above 9,400. There's Drew Brees at 8,300, and there's no one else above 8,000. So, like, you're either paying up or you're not. Like, there's no choices unless you want Drew Brees. Like, he's the only middle ground between paying up and not paying up. So, you've got both sides of the New England-Indianapolis matchup as top quarterbacks. You got Peyton Manning, obviously, and you got Aaron Rodgers. And then you've got, like, all of those lower-tier guys. Which way would you lean this week? Would you be paying up for quarterback, or would you be okay settling for a lesser one?
I don't know. I did a little bit of lineup construction before we came on here, and I really preferred to like take the Robert Griffin route. So I mean, like I want to pay up for a quarterback, but then when I do, especially in a tournament fashion, I pay up for Rodgers, and then it's like, well, I want to stack him with Nelson or Cobb, but then it's like then the rest of my lineup, like I'm working with pennies for the rest of the time. And that's what gets me.
No, yeah, I hear you, but we haven't paid up for quarterback on any of our rosters so far.
We ought to probably, right. We ought to probably. I mean, you did talk me into putting Matthew Stafford in one of our lineups one time. So
yeah, whatever. But I think that Aaron Rodgers is the guy. His price didn't go up because his price was set before the Monday night matchup. He should be more expensive than Andrew Luck, and he's not.
And no doubt. Yeah, Luck at 10,000. Like, oh my God, who is?
It's a good contrarian play because he's going to get a ton of volume in that game, but like it's not.
But it's so I hate putting one of those 10,000 prices
Yeah,
into my
it,
lineup.
it looks it looks bad. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
aesthetics.
scary.
Hashtag aesthetics. Twitter. Uh,
Yes, sir.
let's move on to running backs because we're going to have to go cheap here, but we can talk about all of them.
Wow.
Uh, At the very top of the list, you've got Matt Forte going up against the Minnesota Vikings, and that's a pretty good matchup. Vikings are allowing 22 points per game to opposing running backs. Yes, the Chicago offense is a mess. No, that does not necessarily mean that they're not going to get any fantasy points. I still would trust Forte, particularly in PPR formats. But I don't think that they're going to be quite as much of a mess in this game. I do think that that team is. I don't think that it's going to be a good team. I do think that it's good enough to at least compete in this game and do some things on offense. Their defense is a whole other story, but I think on offense that there are some things that can go on there. Are there any running backs that stand out to you this week as particularly good matchups?
I mean, right up at the top, I still kind of like. I kind of like Eddie Lacy. I know he's like a dirty word in some
His volume
circles.
in the passing game makes no sense. I swear, it's a once a week occurrence that JJ and I are talking back and forth, and one of us just says unspeakable curse words about the fact that Eddie Lacy gets so much volume in the passing game. It makes no sense,
And then
and
his
it's what
big fat ass actually manages to score on him
yeah,
too.
but it's just it's bad process to get rewarded for his passing game involvement, but it's good process to pick running backs who are in good offenses overall. Because if you're in a good offense, like you're going to trip and fall into stuff like that. And like Drew Dinkmeyer of Roto Experts is famous for saying that Eddie Lacy moves about as fast as dial-up internet, and it's true. Like everything he does is just slow and
Yeah.
painful, but it works. So
It's weird.
yeah, like and it's a good matchup, and his price is okay. Like I think it's more than I'd care to spend.
Yeah.
But in season long, like yeah, like I love Eddie Lacy this week. Versus
I like Ingram too. This week, I like looking at this down the list a little bit.
yeah, Bengals have the worst run defense
Yeah.
according to number fire rankings. So absolutely,
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a good one. Saints are at home. It still looks like those other cats aren't going to be back yet.
Well, Ingram's got a Q too. Oh,
Yeah.
it's his shoulder still. Never mind. Yep, he's fine.
Yeah. And who are the other ones? Oh, Ryan Matthews. And if he comes back, I think he's slated to play. That's interesting. He's less expensive than Oliver, who really has kind of fallen off the map. Um, I just want to say this. I just want to throw this out there and see what you think of this because I want to play someone against the Bears, but I don't know who the hell it's going to be. Part of me thinks like I kind of want to stick Asiata in a few lineups just if he scores a touchdown, but then I'll hate myself when he, gets 10 yards on 20 carries, whatever.
Yeah, I can't do that. He scored all of his career touchdowns in 2 games.
I know, it's disgusting. I'm just,
Yeah. No, like I would go with McKinnon if that's the route you want to go, and I'm fine with that.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that on here. I was just.
No. I just mean in general. Like
Oh.
this is to the audience. Like if you want to put Jerick McKinnon in your lineup, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to chase touchdowns with Matt Asiata.
I hear you.
Uh,
I was on one of the Audible podcasts. I think Sigmund Bloom said it was like Matt Asiata's like the black hole of that offense, or like the gravitational pull where like he takes everybody's good play and then sucks in all their touchdowns into his one terrible body.
how about?
Well, we should probably go ahead.
I had this brief moment where I was thinking about Trent Richardson, but Ahmad Bradshaw's just going to take all of the good opportunities from him. So that's not going to work. And see, like I mentioned, Trent Richardson, and your dog gets mad. So like.
Like no, he does seem to have good time about that.
Let me take a look here real quick at some other matchups while Matt tends to his dog. The Falcons-Panthers game, both of those teams, the Falcons and the Panthers, both have awful run defenses, but also both of those teams have messes at the running back spot. So, like, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, I guess Jonathan Stewart and Steven Jackson would be the guys to go with there, but even then, like in season long, yeah, like I'll start those guys if you have them and you don't have better options. But um, in DFS, I'm not sure if I'm going with those guys. Actually,
Yeah,
maybe Jonathan Stewart if he's
yeah.
healthy, but that's the
Stewart
question.
would be like literally the only one out of that entire game I would consider. What do you think about the Denver backfield? Where do you stand on probably Sans Hillman? What's your take on CJ Unicorn Anderson and you know the emergence of Monte Ball, the reemergence of Monte Ball?
Like, I feel like if Ball plays, it's Ball that you want because like Hillman had earned his playing time over a bunch of weeks. Like Anderson did it in 1 week against a really bad team. Like I feel like I'm avoiding it altogether. But if I have to go with the guy, and if Ball's playing, like I'm going to go with Ball. But I'm not happy about it either way. And
Yeah,
I'm definitely not doing it in DFS unless there's some sort of clarity this week. Because if Ball
good
doesn't
luck.
play and Hellman's out, like Anderson is what you want. But I'm not sure we're going to get that sort of clarity.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick Anderson in a few tourney lineups just to see because he looks really damn good and like all the Broncos like beat writers, Mike Kliss was like, seriously, why wasn't this guy playing before? I mean, there's got to be something there, but probably who knows? It's Fox. John Fox he's gonna mess with us about this, so it's a lot of chasing.
Okay, well, we need to pick some running backs, and it's going to be tough because we need to save money. Um,
What about any thoughts to like Jeremy Hill?
I was thinking of a team in that state. I was thinking Ben Tate, or not Ben Tate, Terrence West against Houston at 4,400. Like, they're going to run the ball, and they're going to be able to against Houston. Like, Houston's not great against the run. Um, and, I feel like West is the guy to have in that backfield, especially coming off of 15 carries and then 26 carries in his last two games, finding the end zone in his last game. Like, I don't love him on DraftKings because he doesn't really get involved in the passing game, but really none of their backs get all that involved in the passing game. I feel like Crowell's maybe the one that gets the most involved, and his volume's too shaky to trust. So,
Yeah.
you down with Terrence West?
Yeah, I guess I like Terrence West, but that's one pick that we could look back on and be like, well, that didn't work out.
It's true, but like I feel like Jeremy Hill's the same way.
Yeah, no.
And there's more recent history of Jeremy Hill being that guy than
Mhm.
because who are they playing? The same.
Saints.
Yeah, like I can see that game getting ugly. Like that game could get really, really ugly,
Right.
and
No,
that
I
would
hear you.
that would take Jeremy Hill out of it. Um, I think you may be more agreeable on this one. Actually, I'll give you an either or. Shane Vereen or Ahmad Bradshaw.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Because this is PPR, so like
Right. So yeah, but either one of those is.
yeah.
I would almost kind of rather spend a little bit more money to get to Ingram, but that's probably not going to work out with the rest of our lineup.
No,
Um,
I bet we could do it. I feel like having two backs that don't really catch the ball in
yeah,
a
that's
DraftKings lineup is kind
that's
of limiting ourselves.
not
Like, I
good.
mean, obviously touchdowns are what matter the most,
Mhm.
but it gives us a little higher floor if we maybe get, particularly in a game with such a high total like that. Like again, that Cincinnati New Orleans game, like Ingram could run like 30 times, but it'll be for 100 yards because they're up and they're stacking the box against him. So.
I would rather go with Bradshaw out of these two, just because I trust his ability to get into the end zone a little more than I do Vereen.
I think that's maybe chasing what he's done so far this year. But I also think that we have to account for who are the other players on those teams, and there's a dominant red zone player on one team and no dominant red zone player on the other. So I agree with you there that
That's more along my thinking.
yes, Bradshaw isn't the better player in the red zone. Bradshaw is higher on his team's priority list in the red zone.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm down with that. Um, So let's go ahead and we'll switch all the way to defenses so that we can kind of get an idea for how much money we have left, and talk about some defenses that we like. Washington against Tampa, if you want to take a risk, if you're streaming defenses, like Josh McCown is bound to turn the ball over, but Washington also has a bad defense, so you got to kind of weigh things against each other there. The Lions Cardinals game, I'd be okay targeting either of those defenses. I'm not sure how many leagues you're going to find those guys available in.
Yeah.
The same with the Bills Dolphins game. Either side of that, that's Thursday night, so we can't use it in this DFS, but um, the defense is there. But uh, like there's not really a ton of great defensive options outside
No,
of that.
there's not. There's not a like when you look at the cheap ones, none of them stand out. Like the only
Yeah.
one I could like tolerate would be like the Giants, just because there's always like a chance that Colin Kaepernick just completely, pees his pants. But even that, I don't really want to chase, even though it's so cheap. But, for DFS purposes only, like the first one that appeals to me is Denver. But in a season long, they're going to be owned.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough in season owned or season long to predict like who's owned and who's not. But
Yeah, because in a lot of leagues, people own two defenses, and
yeah,
it's you really.
like I mean, I would be okay with New Orleans at home against Cincinnati too for
Yeah.
29 in DFS. But I agree. Like I think the Broncos is good. Um, I'm also okay paying a little more for who is it? San Diego hosting Oakland. But then again, like they've kind of let me down in the past, so maybe I'm.
Same.
Uh, Wait a second. The Cardinals are 2,800. I don't know about this. I think we need to use the Cardinals.
Uh, but against Detroit, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like, I mean, I know Megatron's back and all, but that's a really good defense. Like, I mean, the the Lions don't have a tight end that worries me, and that would be like the main concern. Um, otherwise the Cardinals are second in points per game against quarterbacks, 10th against or second against running backs, 10th against quarterbacks, and in number fire data they are eighth against the run and sixth against the pass. So like for cheaper than pretty much anything else, and with I think that they have more guys who can score touchdowns, and I know that's really tough to chase. But then compared to the Broncos, like I feel like there's more guys on the Arizona defense and special teams who can score touchdowns.
Yeah, I can see the utility in that. I would probably rather go Denver, but I'm fine taking it. The less.
Also, Denver's on the road, Cardinals are at home.
True, true. It's always much safer to go home. I'm fine with spending $200 less to go with Arizona.
Okay. And then let's do tight end really quick. We'd love to pay up for Rob Gronkowski or Jimmy Graham, but we're not going to be able to in this lineup. But hey, Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham are good plays this week.
They are great plays this week. Well, I think tight end is super simple in DFS. Like it's almost like in this week it's going to be either I'm going to pay up for Gronk in my cash games and I'm going to play Kelsey in tournaments. So that's probably that's that. If you haven't guessed where I'm going to want to go with this pick, it's probably that's a little hint. But diving more in.
Do we have any injury updates on Kyle Rudolph? Because if Kyle Rudolph's going to play, I want to play Kyle Rudolph.
I don't know if it's for certain yet. Limited participant in Wednesday's practice. That's the latest on here. First full practice since he underwent surgery. So I don't know if he's for sure going to play yet or not.
Because for 3,600 against the Bears,
Right.
like that's really good. But yeah, this is maybe one of those like he'll be in my actual lineup. We're setting this early. I can't do it. That's a guy to keep an eye on. Let's see other good tight end matchups. Yeah, Kelsey's obviously a pretty good one.
If you were crazy, you could chase Jared Cook again. I know.
I mean, the Broncos are pretty, but it's going to be Sean Hill, so we don't know. Like,
yeah, exactly. Worked out last week, but I don't know.
yeah, Jimmy Graham's matchup is ridiculous. That's a great matchup. And I mean, can we trust Vernon Davis yet?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, because
you should drop Vernon Davis in season.
See, I don't know if I'd go that far, but like I definitely.
You should drop him and Crabtree. No reason to carry either of those two anymore.
How about Heath Miller against the Titans?
No, don't put me to sleep here.
No, I know he's old and slow, but okay. How about Michael Rivera against the Chargers?
I mean, I guess I'd still much rather just put Kelsey in there.
No, we're gonna go with Kelsey. I was just trying to get some other,
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I think Rivera's a decent play. Like
if okay, and yeah, like I wasn't really serious about Rivera. I don't trust him at all, actually. Just because of that offense in general, and because you've got really good red zone receivers and Jones and Holmes. Like I'm not sure that I trust Rivera all that much.
well, in a season-long league, I don't know if this counts as a sizzling hot take, but I'd rather have Rivera on my team than Vernon Davis, just because I
Well, I
know
mean,
he's
you
going to
said
get
to
that.
drop him, and Rivera is a waiver wire level player, so that's not really a super hot take compared to what you just said. But I'm
But
gonna give
all hot. The whole thing is. I'm trying to put it in the stew right now.
I'm gonna go against you and say that I would totally hold on to Vernon Davis and Michael Crabtree. I think that you're nuts, but um,
Well, it wouldn't be the first time.
I would say that if Kyle Rudolph is ruled out, that Chase Ford is a guy that I would be willing to plug into season long lineups. But I don't think he has a lot of upside for DFS. But I think 5 catches for 80 yards is something that Chase Ford can do, and probably nobody owns him. So if you're having trouble at tight end,
Yeah.
that is a guy that I would go and get. Now we need to get our wide receivers, and I think that we've saved enough money. We have to do it. We have to put Jordy in there.
Yeah. Yep. Cool with
So
that.
so Jordy Nelson to pair with Aaron Rodgers. We could differentiate from last week and try to go with Randall Cobb, but at some point, like the fact that Nelson's the better receiver is going to balance out, and I think we've seen that start to happen.
Well, what about Julio Jones?
No,
700 less? No.
no,
Okay.
no, don't trust that offense. Don't like you said about Matt Ryan not going back to that well. I don't trust them right now. Uh,
Okay.
I think
That's
that
fair.
Matt Ryan is on a one touchdown per game pace, and they're throwing to Devin Hester way too much. So that offense is just backwards, and I don't like it, and I don't want to participate in that. So if Julio Jones has a big week this week, I'm not winning money in DFS because I'm not going to roster him again.
I
Um,
love how you just said, I don't want to participate in that. Like you're really taking a moral stand against these Atlanta Falcons.
it's about ethics in daily fantasy sports selection.
Oh, no doubt. I love, also, this is a side note, we're not going to put him in our lineups, but Antonio Brown at 7,800, I'm probably going to go back to that well in a lot of places just because.
Oh, Antonio Brown, absolutely, yeah. Like we can't get him in this lineup, but yeah, I'll be all over that. Even though his matchup would be a little better than it, or worse than it has been in recent weeks, but not
Um,
that much.
but I mean, his reduced price from what it was, I mean, whew, it's nice.
Um, if you had to pick a Washington wide receiver, who would you pick?
Well, Pierre's fourth. I mean, are you just asking me in general or in DFS? I mean, Pierre's so
Well,
much
both,
cheaper.
both, yeah.
Well,
Like
yeah, Garcon is so much cheaper. He's like what 4,000.
he has 4,000,
He's
yeah.
he's going to be in a lot of places.
No love for
Just
Santana Moss,
uh,
Andre Roberts, Leonard Hankerson,
excuse me.
Aldrick Robinson.
Like that's a sinful offense to even mention a name like Santana Moss in front of me. I actually really liked Santana Moss back when he was like actually a football player, and
Yeah.
not a you know a, an artifact.
Is Andre Roberts isn't doing anything since all these guys are back. Never
No,
mind, because
no,
Andre Roberts is mid price, but he's
stop that. You stop that.
um, yeah, like Deshaun Jackson, if you're paying up, like I'm totally cool with that. People get behind the Tampa Bay defense all the time, but I'm kind of leaning towards Pierre Garcon. He's been bad this year, like really bad. But like week one, he had 10 catches. Maybe as good old Bobby Griffin works his way back into the lineup, he remembers that you know
This is his favorite target.
yeah that's his favorite guy. Like I don't know. I think we need to look at it some more because that's such a good matchup, and obviously there's room for getting a guy that can score some points in that game. But I'm not sure we can just go ahead and pencil in Garcon. I think we need to keep looking.
What
Yeah,
about Devonte Adams right around that same price range? I mean, I feel like he hasn't had that game yet.
you want to double stack with Nelson?
Well, maybe not in our lineup.
No, like I'm totally cool with it if you want to. Like I think that's you know if you think he's going to score a touchdown, I think that's like Jordy will catch 12 for 100 in a touchdown, and then Devontae will catch 2 for 30 in a touchdown, and we'll get value out of both of them. Like,
Like, I definitely think that can happen just because those two outside corners are the weakness of the defense. Like, obviously they're not going to shut down Randall Cobb or anything, just
I'm cool
because
with it. Let's do it. Let's
yeah,
get Devontae Adams in there.
I'm into it.
Dude, double stack.
Also,
I
just
mean,
disgusting. Just a little whisper into your ear, real quick too. Cordero Patterson's only just.
yeah, Cordell Patterson, blah blah blah. I would rather start Jarris Wright or Greg Jennings.
You're a bad person.
Or Andre Holmes. We can go back to that well again. He's been in every one of our lineups.
No, yeah, I'm over it. No more Andre Holmes.
Um,
I'm gonna take a moral stand against that. Also, I don't care how cheap Michael Floyd is, and he's 3,200 this week. Never, ever again. Never again.
3,200. He's 3,200.
Don't no. Mm-mm. I can't. No. I cannot allow us to get those 3 points into our lineup.
How about John Brown then?
I just feel like the matchup's not that good. Either way.
John Brown is matchup proof. John Brown had his best games in college against Northwest Missouri State. He is matchup proof. I love John Brown. John Brown's like great. If I ever stop liking the Bucks, which may happen eventually because they're awful,
probably should.
Like I'm just gonna root for whatever team has John Brown on it because he's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Speaking of the Bucks, Preston Parker. Ugh, this makes no sense to me. How do you feel about Jordan Matthews?
Oh, I would be willing to put Matthews.
Like, who's the slot corner in Green Bay?
Casey Hayward. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah, like he's not bad, but.
But I think there's again we talked about point spreads, and there's gonna be a lot of points in this game.
Yeah, and he's a good red zone guy, and Sanchez, even if Sanchez doesn't favor him, like some people are kind of thinking, like he does trust him enough to give him the same volume that Foles did. So, and maybe has better chemistry with him. So I think that sets us up to have a really high priced flex guy too. So
yeah,
but both sides of that game.
But what about Keenan Allen at the same price? What do you think about that?
Actually, you know what? How about we take out Devontae and do Jordan Matthews and Keenan Allen?
Why the hell not?
Because then that still leaves us 7,000 for our flex spot, which is more than enough to get a good player. And we've got Jordy Nelson, Jordan Matthews, and Keenan Allen, so we're not reliant on Rodgers spreading the wealth. Like if he goes 15 for 130 to Jordy or 15 for 200 to Jordy or whatever, like we can just get all of that. Like Devontae's still good, like put Devontae in your lineups, but
yeah,
I feel like we saved enough money elsewhere to earn this. Of course, 7,000 is what Julio costs.
I was gonna say.
Gosh.
Carolina can't cover a soul.
No, they can't. We may have to do this. Let me see.
I mean, it's everything lines up that he's got to score a damn touchdown. He only has 3.
Have they not played this year? Have the Panthers and Falcons not played yet?
Mm-mm. Nope. I mean, I would do it.
Because I don't trust Mike Evans at 6,800. That's way too high for him. Adrian Peterson. We're not even going to that.
And you already ruled out Fat Eddie. We already have too many Packers.
Yeah.
LaShawn.
It doesn't match with our roster construction.
No.
And then like LaShawn McCoy.
What about Jimmy Graham? 7,000 also.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Graham is 7,000. Wow, Travis Kelce and Jimmy Graham. I kind of like it.
That makes me so happy.
I kind of like that. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that because that's going to differentiate us too. Because if Graham if Graham and Kelce both have good games, like this lineup is going to be set apart from lots of other lineups. And since this is a tournament, that's good. Like I wouldn't do that in cash games, but in a tournament, having 2 tight ends, like only like 10% of teams use a tight end in the flex on DraftKings. And so you really differentiate yourself in the point that like those are 2 tight ends who could score 2 touchdowns each. And if none of the other tight ends do that, like you've got such a leg up on everybody. And 7,000, like the wide receivers at 7,000, we were just talking about like Deshaun Jackson, Julio Jones, Mike Evans. Like Graham's going to outscore all of them. Like that's almost a certainty.
Hmm.
So I think that's really good. I really like that lineup. So just to
I was
run
gonna
through,
say I really like the lineup too, but
yeah, which is the death note. But Aaron Rodgers, Terrence West, Ahmad Bradshaw, Jordy Nelson, Jordan Matthews, Keenan Allen, Travis Kelce, Jimmy Graham, and the Arizona Cardinals defense, who will probably get 0 points and keep us out of the cash. But whatever.
and it will all come back to me.
If it's the Cardinals defense that keeps us from cashing, like if they score 0 points or negative points or something, I'll send you I'll PayPal you $5 because we made such good picks up elsewhere. So
You don't have to do that.
no, I know I probably wouldn't anyway. I haven't held up on any of our bets so far. What are you talking
Well, it's real sweet of you to promise things to the listeners.
about? Let's go through some questions real quick. We're going a little long on this one, but you guys don't care. You guys stayed. There were people who legitimately stayed through. Michael
Yeah,
Stepney, who's been
yeah,
tweeting
yeah.
at us, like he stayed through the whole thing last week, and so proud
Michael,
of you.
Michael's great. I gotta give a shout out to Michael. He watches all my shows. He talks back and forth with me about a lot of stuff. He's a great guy. Really,
Yeah.
really appreciate everything.
At mstepney71 on the Twitters. I'm not sure how much he tweets, but if you want to go follow him, it'd be a nice gesture.
Great guy.
Let's go through some of the questions that we've got, and one of them is from Michael. He has a couple of defense questions. He has Kansas City or Denver. Kansas City playing against the Seahawks, and Denver against. Who was Denver playing again? Why did I forget this?
St. Louis.
St. Louis. And with John Hill, that's too easy for me. Like, I think Kansas City is the better defense, but in this week, Russell Wilson's been running too much, and Marshawn Lynch is too good. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a good enough matchup to keep me away from using the Broncos there.
Yeah. So we're talking defenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. No way. Yeah. It has to be.
Yeah, so we're both saying Denver there. And then Browns, Vikings, Chargers, or Packers. Definitely not the Packers. Browns are playing the Texans with Ryan Mallett. I would go with the Browns.
Yeah. I was gonna let you speak, and you landed on the right. You landed on the right call.
Yeah, I mean, Vikings against the Bears, yes, they'll probably get a couple turnovers, but they'll probably also give up 28 points. And the Chargers just don't have a good defense. But if you don't trust the Browns, even though because they're not really doing great this year, if you don't trust them, I would go with San Diego. But you can't trust San Diego either. So
They just did have a nice game too. They did whoop around Andy Dalton, so they might be getting a little bit better, but who knows?
that's true. That's true. And then we've got Dusty.
I was gonna read.
Yeah.
Dusty is another one that's followed me for a long time, and
Yeah.
he sends me some outrageous stuff. So
Yeah, this was pretty good. So go ahead, you read it. He's your. I'm not even in this tweet, so this is all you.
Oh yeah, okay. Better roommate, Jimmy Clausen or Kim Kardashian?
To me, as an objective, professional football person, the obvious answer is Jimmy Clausen because we could watch film together and he could help me set my fantasy lineups. Jimmy Clausen would be awesome.
Nerd. I don't want. I would. I hate. I hate Jimmy Clausen. I'll actively say that I hate Jimmy Clausen. So I can't go with him. And I mean, but it really depends on what you're looking for. I'll say that. I mean, Jimmy Clausen really ruined my Panthers, any affection I had for the team. The very first game I ever went to was that game when they played the Bears back in the season he was starting. So it was the first time Julius Peppers came back to Bank of America Stadium after leaving for Chicago, and it was just Jimmy Clausen playing hot garbage, and I had to sit in the stands next to this big fat Bears fan throughout the whole game who just said you sit next to his. I'm being mean, but you sit next to his girlfriend, and he just goes, "Oh baby, I'm so happy," and I'm like, "I'm so miserable." So I hate Jimmy Clausen. So I'm gonna go with Kim. And I think her and I could, we could have some nice conversation.
Yeah, nice conversations. You're an awful person.
I mean, we're both fashionable people.
You and Kim. Yeah, I'm sure people are waiting for your leaked photos on the internet.
Oh Christ!
My boys' cards tweets in, and he has a trade question. He tweeted us his lineup, and like if I'm squinting, it's because I'm trying to read the picture of his lineup. But um, basically, he's saying he needs running back help. He's got Ahmad Bradshaw, Isaiah Crowell, Travaris Cadet, Charles Sims, and Lorenzo Talaferro. And so, yes, you do need running back help. Sorry, I'm not trying to be mean, but you do.
I got a few rosters that look like that.
Yes, no kidding. Um, Especially the one where I traded away LaShawn McCoy because I'm smart. Um, Basically, what he's trying to do is he's trying to trade Rodgers and turn him into some wide receiver or some running back assets. But the running back asset that he's targeting is Frank Gore in this trade. I won't go through the whole trade because I'm just going to shut it down right there and say that I'm not going to give up Aaron Rodgers, even though the other pieces in this trade are nice. I'm not going to give up Aaron Rodgers if the best running back I'm getting back is Frank Gore because I don't think that's a big enough upgrade from Ahmad Bradshaw, Charles Sims. Like, yeah, Gore's probably going to outscore those guys a couple weeks, but like, I want more of a return if I'm giving up the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, Gore is so touchdown dependent. I mean, if he doesn't score, he's not gonna be a useful asset in your fantasy lineup at all, and that's hard to predict. I mean, you could play him when the Niners are projected to win, but I hate managing running backs like that. So I wouldn't do that.
Like if you can get a trade where you're not worrying about wide receivers and like maybe even give up a wide receiver because he's got Roddy, Rubin, Alshon, Josh Gordon, and Michael Crabtree. Like if you can package two of those non-Gordon receivers with a running back and get a running back or something like that, like I would do that. He's also got Julius Thomas and Travis Kelce. Like it looks like you can start multiple tight ends, and if it's tight end premium, obviously it's a little different, but
it's 1-2. You start 1-2 tight ends.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if like it's 1.5 PPR for tight ends or something like that.
Yeah.
But like just package some guys together and do a multiple for one running back. Like if somebody will take that. Like if somebody needs some depth, because I don't think that Rodgers trading here. Like I said, I kind of like the deal otherwise, but just Gore is such a deal breaker there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it would be nice if you could get Ruben Randall off your roster.
Yeah, as sort of a sell high-ish kind of guy.
What? No way. You sell at like his lowest point ever. He's disgusting.
I don't even want to. Okay. You and Kim can talk about that when you're roommates.
Ruben Randall has like a force field around him, and it's keeping all the passes away.
Yeah, because they're all going to Odell Beckham Jr. because he's so much taller and better at football.
Whatever.
Sorry. Michael also tweets at us while we were talking about our lineups and mentioned AJ Green at 6,000, Roddy, Jeremy Hill, and Alfred Morris all at 5,400. I'm not sure I can go back to the Roddy either. I think that's kind of included in the Julio thing. Alfred Morris is interesting. The Bucs are actually pretty good against running backs, but I can totally see Alfred Morris scoring like 3 touchdowns against the Bucs. And just tilting everyone who plays that passing game.
Yeah, no doubt. That can totally happen. And also I could see a scenario where like that Washington offense for some reason just clicks and they blow the Bucs out and Morris gets a lot of carries.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of scenarios there that could unfold, but the Bucs have a pretty good run defense. Actually, they're one of the best from an objective standpoint. Number Fire has them as the second best in the NFL, and but they give up the 23rd most points because they are often behind and because they can't cover the pass against running backs, which is not Alfred Morris' strength at all. I could say it's not his forte, which is not kind of a nice play on words. But and then we mentioned Jeremy Hill, and you mentioned Odell Beckham Jr. at 6,000, and I'm not paying that much for Odell Beckham Jr.
Why? He's a great player.
He's too short.
You're foolish.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't really like Odell Beckham, and I don't know why.
I don't know why you don't either.
It's because Jarvis Landry's so much better. Jarvis Landry's hands are like they're huge. Like,
but Beckham's got huge hands. I mean, has great ball skills too. I don't get.
Is that where he wins? Does he play big?
Well, I'm not gonna tweet you I'm not going to quote you the Josh Norris gospel, but
I think that's it. I think that's all. Do you have any other questions that you got during the show?
No, I did not.
Okay. So I think that's it. So we've got our lineup drafted. We've kind of gone over everything. Well, we haven't gone over kickers. Hey, kickers are random and stupid, and they shouldn't be in your league. And if they are, just like start one that's not playing and protest. Like
Yeah.
start Alex Henry at kicker and
Oh my God. Yeah, that's great. That's good advice.
um, yeah, that's the way to score the most points. Public service announcement that we're not paid for at all, and you may not actually get to take advantage of if you're not already a member. But DraftKings is doing a
A free
one
roll.
hundred thousand dollar $100,000 free roll. It is unlimited entries, so it's going to have a ton of people in it. It's already got 25,000 people in it, but the top 15,000 get at least $2, and the top spot gets 10,000, and you don't pay a dime to enter it. So if you put together like the best lineup ever this week, and you enter it for free, you can walk away with 10,000. It's the caveat is it's DraftKings dollars, so it's not real dollars, so you can't just cash it out. You have to then play it and make sure you don't lose it all so that you can cash out. But um, that's considering it's free. Like you really don't have any room to complain. So if you're a DraftKings member and you haven't been playing there because you're out of money there, like go and throw your lineup on here and just give it a shot. Because at this point, like I don't know how full it's going to get. It's probably going to get upwards of 90 to 100,000 people in it. So if you can finish in the top, like what's that, 75th percentile, you'll get at least a couple bucks that you can throw on a contest the week after. So, and if
Yeah.
you're already entering lineups anyway, just
They
throw it.
want that winner to fire all those money into the millionaire maker. So bad.
10K worth that would be the worst way to do it too. That would be the absolute worst way to spend that 10K in DraftKings dollars is to put it in the Millionaire Maker because the payouts are so top heavy that like if I won it, like I would enter like 10 $1,000 head-to-head matches.
That
Uh,
makes complete sense coming from you.
Or actually, no, what I would do is I would just enter one of the $5,300 head-to-head matches against Condia just to say I did it, and I'd probably lose, but it wasn't my money anyway, so whatever. And then with the rest of it, I would like play like 50-50s and stuff. But like I'm just all like I would feel like such a boss clicking like to
I
accept and
know that would be great.
like that would be the best just to click on like right now. Let me go and see NFL like 5,300. Yeah, like Condia 5,300 head to head. Like just click on that and just like I may put up my dumbest lineup possible just to like see if like football karma gives me that 10K payout just for whatever. But um, and of course I pick up a couple of really expensive games against Pete Jennings just so that I can tweet at him if I beat him. Um, but yeah, so definitely head over to DraftKings, and obviously, FanDuel's probably going to do something similar here in the near future if they haven't already, because that's kind of how these sites compete, is that they do similar things to each other to attract the same amounts of attention if things work. So if this free roll works and a bunch of people sign up, maybe FanDuel will do one. I know FanDuel's getting some NBA money now. I guess they're like the official daily fantasy source of the NBA or something. So
Yeah, I saw that today.
yeah, but who plays basketball? Basketball's stupid.
Basketballs.
Um, I think that will do it. Do you have anything going on this week that you want to tell the people about, Matt?
Um, I'm trying to write some column for Black and Blue Review about the Panthers, but I have no idea their awfulness to break down. So I have a Golden Tate is the reception perception receiver of the week. I already tweeted the charts out. You can go back and take a look at those, and I'll have the post up at some point. But that's pretty much it.
All right. And I already wrote for Roto Grinders this week about Jarvis Landry, who I mentioned earlier, and the Falcons offense, which you can go look at. I was a little more positive in that article than I am like when I've got my objective football analyst hat on, I'm okay with the Falcons offense. When I've got my emotional lineup setting hat on, I hate the Falcons offense. Um, but Jarvis Landry, I'm seriously pretty high on. I think he's going to be good here in a couple weeks for daily fantasy. But
Oh yeah, I
um,
think he's going to be good, just not better than Odell Beckham.
yeah, well, I mean, he is already better than Odell Beckham, but Actually, he's not even taller than Odell Beckham, is he? They're both like 5'11", right?
No, I have no idea why. Like, if you were gonna try to be like an ass about Odell Beckham, I don't know why you would pick Jarvis
Well,
Landry.
no, but I'm not that's not me just being a jerk. Like I genuinely think that Jarvis Landry's going to have a better last few weeks of the season, but it's just because I don't like Odell Beckham for some reason. So, um,
You confuse me, Leo.
whatever. And I wrote about quarterback streamers for Number Fire. I will have an article about Anquan Bolden coming up soon when I can work it into my schedule. So there'll be some stuff on him, and then I do daily fantasy values every week, so you can watch for that on Friday. And over at the sports blog, which is fantasygameplan.sportsblog.com, I wrote my article about the numbers in football thing that came up today. So you can go check that out, and you can check out the recap of this podcast show and see the lineups that we set and comment on what we talked about. And get our Twitter account so that you can tweet at us if you didn't already come here from Twitter, which you probably did. But that'll do it for this week. Any final words, Matt, before we go?
Nope, it's been a pleasure. I kind of needed this a little bit today, so it's nice.
Therapeutic. The
It
nice
was.
hour and 30-minute podcast. We're going way long on these, and I just don't even care. Like, people are still watching. Like, it says there's a viewer, and it might, like, be my mother watching or something. I don't know, but
Oh, my mother's definitely not watching this.
no, mine's not either. Mine's probably asleep. She works at, like, 4 o'clock in the morning or something stupid like that. But anyway, that'll do it for this episode of the Fantasy Game Plan. For Matt, I am Leo, and we'll see you all next week.
Fun, fun.